This is WSHC. You're on the air.
Great. This is Ed Rabel.
Oh, hi, Ed Rabel. How you doing? I hear you're running for Congress.
Indeed, I am. I have come back to West Virginia after being away for quite a while. More than 2 years ago, I came back, and now I'm looking around and I see that things are not changed very much. It's politics as usual, and I want to try to make a difference.
All right, so tell me a little bit about your background. You had some. You were in broadcasting or news?
Oh, come on, Mr. Rabel. This is Patience. I've been communicating with you.
Yes, Patience. How are you?
Fine, thank you. I'm really glad that you called.
Here.
Now, as soon as I saw your name, I recognized you, but then I tend to be something of a news junkie. So you were a correspondent for both CBS and NBC, is that right?
I started out in broadcasting here in Charleston, but I went on to work for CBS for 20 years, covering wars and rumors of wars, and then with NBC for about 13 years. So a long and cherished career as a network television news correspondent.
All right, so you're running. Why the Mountain Party? Why not run and try to win in the Democratic Party? Because the Mountain Party hasn't been getting very many votes recently.
Well, you're absolutely right about that, but I'm hoping that people will take a look around and see what has happened with regard to the traditional parties, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party in West Virginia. I think many people will agree that both of those parties really constitute the same party. So the way I look at it is I want to offer myself as the alternative or the other party, the opposition party in West Virginia. And I think that a lot of Republicans, a lot of Democrats will certainly see that an alternative is what is needed here. A nationwide poll taken recently, more than 60% of the respondents said that they, after the mess in Washington recently, the shutdown of the government, that they would like to see a third party and that they would vote for a third party candidate. So I'm hoping that same kind of thing will resonate here in my home state where I was born in Charleston and grew up and was graduated from high school in St. Albans and went on to Morris Harvey College to go to school. So I'm very familiar with the state, and I consider myself very much a part of this, and I just would love to be able to make a difference here as the independent, as an alternative.
Now, the other day we had John Doyle in here on the program, and he was bewailing the state of political parties in maybe not exactly the same tone as you are. He's a former state delegate here from Eastern Panhandle, and his remark is that people are not raising their money through parties anymore, and that's why parties like the Republican Party doesn't have the discipline over like the Tea Party faction that it once had, because these guys are all getting their money independently of the actual party organization, and so they don't feel accountable to parties, so to speak. And maybe does that resonate as something that's causing this one party feel to everything, that basically there's just these vested interests that are buying politicians? And
well, surely, it seems to me that, not to be crass about it, but they're all in bed with one another. My own campaign appeals not to corporate interests, not to special interests, but to it's a grassroots campaign, and I'm appealing to folks, individuals who are disgusted with the way things have been in the other traditional parties, and I'm appealing to them for contributions. I'm not taking any large contributions from special moneyed interests, and so I think that will give more credibility to my campaign for the 2nd Congressional District.
Well, let me ask, when you talk about wanting to go to Congress to represent, it's fine to talk about the disillusion in the state among voters and that you want to give them a place to go and to cast a vote that can be a positive. But what would you want to do in Congress? What legislative issues would you want to pursue? How would you address the influence of coal on both West Virginia and national issues? Where do you stand on coal? I mean, that's probably in this state, unfortunately, about the most basic question there is.
I agree with you, and I think that that is one of those things that we have to consider to be not simplistic. For example, the coal industry constantly talks about how it would like to see new clean coal technology develop. Yet at the same time, they spent more on public relations denouncing the restrictions by the Obama administration concerning coal-fired plants than they did on trying to develop new technologies. I believe that there ought to be a mixture of energy sources. Coal certainly is part of that. Natural gas is part of that. Wind and solar, they're all part of it. So my point of view is that we ought to look to an expansion of our ideas and movement toward energy sources as opposed to concentrating only on coal.
What's your attitude toward the Affordable Health Care Act if you're running for Congress?
Well, the Affordable Health Care Act is the law of the land. I've talked to many people who might vote for me, and they are of the opinion that the far right's handling of this situation, what a mess they made, wasting $24 billion in opposing so-called Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act. The ACA is the law of the land. It is going forward, and I think that we ought to take a look at. We ought to wait and see how effective it is before we make any final judgments on what to do about it. I hear you, but I have one problem right now, and that is that, for example, right this minute, it's very difficult, for West Virginians to go actually get information about how or guidance or assistance, because West Virginia turned down federal money to train people. The money that was actually released by the independently to train people under contracts was held up by Attorney General Morrissey for months. Okay, with demands for background checks and all this other garbage. And the point was that right now, for example, if the local churches around here wanted to help sponsor an enrollment fair for the expanded Medicaid program, which is a lot of West Virginians eligible for, you can't do it. You can't get into the website, one, and two, you can't find anybody that could train people to help people, be a community assistant and help people, get enrolled. You can't do it. So we need help right now, and it seems like everybody's just sitting on their thumbs in the government about this. Poor Perry Bryant and what's her name, Ashley Adams from West Virginians for Affordable Health Care, running around like four people all over the state trying to do what the government should be doing.
Well, actually, now that he's
that's my rant. I'm sorry, but I'm just saying upset about it.
Let me ask, what are the top 3 issues that you would want to take on?
Well, the main issues I want to take on have to do with growth in the economy, new jobs for West Virginia, building perhaps a new airport between Charleston and Huntington. I know that issue was taken up some years ago, but it was never satisfied fully, and it just seems to me that in order to make our economy more robust, we need to do, 1, improve the economic health of West Virginia, 2, expand the opportunities here by expanding the economy. In other words, making it more robust, not depending on one particular industry. In our state right now, Walmart is the biggest private employer, not coal. There are fewer than 25,000 coal miners in the state of West Virginia. Back in 1948, there were 126,000 miners. Now, fewer than 25,000 miners. We need to get away from this idea that somehow coal is going to be the savior. It isn't. We have to expand the economy. We have to make it more robust. We have to lure new industries into our state, much like the Toyota plant here in western West Virginia. we have to do these things, otherwise we're simply going to be mired in politics as usual, and that's the way I want.
What about the Eastern Panhandle? Because I tell you, out here, the folks here, we feel that Shelley barely ever calls us, right? Okay, the biggest thing you know about Shelley Moore Capito is that she's not going to show up in Jefferson County. Or in the Eastern Panhandle much. Okay, so that, and actually you got this huge reservoir of human capital in this part of the state. A lot of professional people that work either in the technology corridor there, headed into Washington on 270, or in D.C. itself. You have a lot of human capital here that it gets all kinds of things conspire to make us less competitive when we got these great resources. You got Shepherd University, you got the national parks, and actually Charlestown is doing not too bad now with the American Public University. And
well, absolutely, no, you're
we have our real assets.
Your part of the country is growing faster than any other part of West Virginia, and you have serious transportation problems that need to be addressed.
Yes, we
Those
do.
MARC trains that go down to Washington every day from Europe, they're packed and so I don't believe that your current representative has served you well at all. My intention, I have a lot of good friends over there in the Eastern Panhandle. I used to live in Washington, and so I know that area quite well. And so I want to concentrate on your area as well. But the thing that we have to remember is this. If we continue to vote time after time after time for these politicians who do not serve us well, who do not serve your area well, and we continue to vote for them. You know what it is? That's a classic definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different outcome.
Right. But as Timothy Leary once said, sometimes the insane see the true things that others don't.
Well, it's a crazy world, isn't it?
One of his best jokes was, he became a comedian for a while after he, sort of de-celebrated himself, for the years of all of his turn on, tune in, drop out stuff. And he was a comedian. He had an act he used to do up around Boston. When we were living in my family were living in New England, and he had a great line. It was right middle of the Nancy Reagan, just say no. And his line was, well, that's not the right way. You should say just say no, thank you, for the dope. It was typical. But yeah, okay. So but do you have a view that? I'm a little concerned about when you say you're going to run a campaign, but you're not going to raise any money.
I didn't say I wasn't going to raise any money. I'm going to appeal to as many people as possible. There are 590,000 people who live in the 2nd Congressional District. 400,000 of them are registered to vote. I want to try to get to see as many of those folks as possible in the year to come. We have a lot of time, obviously. And I want to try to take my appeal directly to them. And I feel confident that they will support me and that they'll donate to my campaign.
Well, now let me ask, one of the things, for all that we poo-poo the importance of party politics these days, one of the reasons that the parties still exist is because they have infrastructure. They have organizers, they've got lists, they've got, computer systems that will slice and dice the electorate in all kinds of different ways. Coming in as a third-party candidate with the Mountain Party, you don't have that infrastructure to draw upon. How are you going to identify the voters that you want to appeal to? How are you going to reach out to them and be sure that they hear your message and have an opportunity to decide for themselves if they want to contribute to your campaign and or to vote for you?
Well, as I said before, I want to go directly into the district. I want to go to your area, speak at your college there. I want to go all over the district. I know an awful lot of people here in Kanawha County and in Charleston. A big population center here, big population center over in Martinsburg, over in your counties there in the Eastern Panhandle.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go and make personal appeals to these folks. And I also hope that we're going to be able to garner enough money at the outset to then go on television and radio and make the appeal. I have some affinity for television and radio.
Yeah, right.
So I hope.
Well, look, if you want to have this, be, like you want to spend a week in the Eastern Panhandle and you come up here, you're welcome to come on here in the mornings and say where you're going to be the rest of the day, and and we can be your little scheduler. I don't know that we're going to issue any big endorsements or not. Last time we did, now nobody we endorse wins, so that might not be a good thing. So it's
Well,
but nonetheless, we're happy to help you be a source for your conversation about your campaign here, so you can get the word out.
Yeah, spread the word about where you'll be.
Yeah, we like doing that on here. So.
Oh, thanks a million, guys. I really
Could I
appreciate
ask
that.
a quick question?
Oh yeah, Gail's another question for you.
Okay.
Ed, you had mentioned that right now Walmart is the biggest private employer in West Virginia, not Cole, if I understood you correctly, okay? And that, to me, is like an amazing statement, okay? Now, could you elaborate then a little more on what you do to get more money into the hands of Walmart's employees so they could, in fact, then channel it through the economy by more purchase power and so on?
Well, for one thing, Walmart depends on the federal government to subsidize Walmart. In other words, most of those people at Walmart make such poor salaries that they have to depend on the federal government for food stamps and other assistance in order to get along.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, go ahead.
So how can we get these employees a reasonable living wage so that they don't have to depend on the federal government?
Well, I think that's an issue that private employers have to take up and have to be responsible in providing the kind of living wages that people can earn, can make in order to live the decent lives in our society. There are other chains other than Walmart, other chains that do pay living wages, and I think that those are good examples of of those things that Walmart could follow.
But how many of them have storefronts in West Virginia?
Well, I don't know. Costco is a little bit better.
Costco is great,
Yep.
and there is not a single Costco in the state of West Virginia. There is not a single one.
Why is that?
That is unfortunate, isn't it? That we haven't been able to diversify the economy in such a way that more of these these companies can come in, and so that people will have a choice rather than just going to a place like Walmart.
But Walmart doesn't want to give you a choice. It's going to do everything it can to
the only solution
keep that choice.
The only solution to Walmart is collective bargaining. There isn't any other solution. You're not going to dictate that every retail job in the country be paid. I mean, the only way to do the large thing of that is to make it easy for employees to unionize and then bargain collectively. At that level of income, there isn't any other solution. If you try to do it legislatively over and over again with minimum wages, which is better than nothing, that's for sure. But legislating wages is the most inefficient. It's so difficult to do. Getting consensus is hard. You have to. There's so many trade-offs every time you do it. You have to have the same debate over it. Better to have just a more liberal collective bargaining law, and then you solve that problem.
Absolutely. I think that you really have to rely on the tools of the marketplace, including collective bargaining, in order to bring it. But one of the things that has happened, as you well know, is that many of our unions have been decimated over the years, and are not effective in West Virginia. I hope that I will be able at least to be a voice for labor and to be a voice for the common man who really are at the mercy of the Walmarts of the world here. We need to be able to make these folks far more robust in their ability to appeal and to work within that environment.
A couple of years ago, I had a fellow on here that was from the Brazilian labor movement. It's been a while. Anyway, he was a leader, and also he was very active in. There's a whole Latin American coalition federation of different trade unions. And anyway, he was talking about how in Brazil back in the 30s. There was a fairly liberal labor law, actually patterned after the Wagner Act, which was quite a bit liberal by comparison to what we have now. But then the dictatorship came during the post-war years into Brazil, and basically the law was on the books, but it was never enforced, or it was just ignored, right, by the military dictatorship. Finally, when Lula came back to power, he made a slight modification in it, and because a lot of it was just not appropriate for some of these occupations where you have people working either part-time or in services, or poverty was very, very big even in the cities back then. And so he modified the law so they made and selected industries and selected occupations. Bargaining was mandatory for just two things, and that was the minimum rate and safety on the job. All right, that every employer had to engage in bargaining with a committee, and then whether it was affiliated with a particular union or not. But that process was put in, and it had a huge effect, at least in the cities. I don't think it did much about the agricultural areas, but it had a big effect in the cities, on raising the effective minimum wages and the effective median wages. And it didn't destroy capitalism in Brazil either. That's what, all these guys say, oh, well, you'll just have socialism after you do this. And it didn't happen, so.
All right, John. That's your second rant of the day.
Sorry about that.
Sounds good, though. I like it.
Yeah, I know, but we wanted to hear from you more than him. He gets on the air every day. And
Okay, I'll shut up. Sorry.
No, you don't have to shut up.
My mother used to say that when I was young all the time. John, would you just shut up?
John, you're supposed to. John, facilitate the conversation. Anyhow, I have two questions that I'd like to ask before we run out of time. One is, do you worry? I mean, I realize that it's fine to say that the two establishment parties, the Republicans and the Democrats, that for West Virginia, there isn't much difference, and in some ways I agree with that. On the other hand, when I look at what happened, as you were talking about in Congress with the shutdown, I think to myself that for all that Mrs. Capito was cowardly in how she handled the shutdown, not taking a leadership position, kind of hiding in the pack of sheep, that we could have had a worse representative. Do you worry, running as a Mountain Party candidate, that you could, if your message is appealing and popular, but you just don't quite have the horsepower to win, could you split the vote and leave us with somebody worse than Mrs. Capito?
Well, that's a common criticism of third-party candidates. And statistics show that Ralph Nader, for example, was not a spoiler. I do not intend to be a spoiler. I honestly believe that there are enough people in the 2nd Congressional District who really will hear my voice and really will, in the final analysis, come over and defect, if you will, from their parties and vote for me. I think that you have to remember that in American history, many fledgling movements have resulted in some of the most inspiring and some of the most effective policy changes that have ever occurred. And so I believe that you have to begin. I believe that at some point people have to take a stand. Because if we get, as I said before, and I know you're getting tired of hearing this, but if we continue to get mired in the kind of the stagnant politics that we've had in West Virginia for so long, we make no movement forward. So it's not in the interest of the thousands of people in the 2nd Congressional District to do once again what they've been doing in the past and getting the same outcome, which is zero,
right?
Which is no good.
Okay. Now, my second question, I think this is a little bit out of left field, but I guess I can say left field.
Certainly on this program.
Yes. Is there, if people are listening to you and thinking about you and trying to sort of get a handle on who you are, one of the things that might help them, is there a particular political figure that you admire or that you consider to have been extremely effective? Is there someone that you would say, this person accomplished something of significance and I would like to aspire to be somewhat like him or her?
I have many heroes. I must tell you that and many of those heroes have been great politicians. One of the one of those I consider to be extraordinary is Teddy Roosevelt. And he's one who, in 1910, before the Sorbonne, made a speech that is often quoted, and I'm quoting it again in a piece that will be run in the Charleston Gazette and other publications around this, and that is that it is really the man in the arena, the person who sets himself apart and is willing to get involved and get his face muddied, and that he's willing to expend sweat and blood in a cause that he believes in. And that he, not only that, but he's not like all those other timid and cold souls who know neither defeat nor victory. That's the kind of guy I want to. That's the kind of guy that I want to emulate.
Well, you got a great voice for it too. Okay. You really do. And I think I'm liking what I'm hearing. I got to tell you. And the little part about raising money from little old ladies, I'm not sure about that part, but I wish we could find some.
You can send me some.
I'll send you a little bit bigger amount, maybe. Right under my Social Security check.
Do you have a website yet? Do you have any of the accoutrements of a campaign so that we can contact?
I do have sites on social networks, but we're just now going to put a website in place, and we'll have on that PayPal, so you can just simply punch a button and contribute thousands and thousands of dollars.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, we'll be looking for you then.
All right.
All right.
All right, stay in touch. We'll come back to you.
Yeah, it was great. Well, look, are you coming to town? You're welcome to use us as your first little soapbox, if you want to.
You betcha. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
All right. Take care, man. Yeah. Oh, that was great.